Hello everybody, and thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the Drunken Hubby. How is everybody doing this week? We've got another great video coming up for you again this week. Before we get any further, I'd like to invite you to hit that subscribe button and hit the little bell notification so that you can be notified whenever I drop a new video. And hit that like button so that the YouTube algorithms can help us out and get us out there to more people. And also, let me know in the comments below what kind of drinks you'd like to see me drink, what kind of topics you'd like to hear me talk about, and let me know if you want to see me do something more than just once a week, or if you want to see me do any other kind of videos, like someone suggests gaming and other kinds of stuff like that. So just let me know. Alright, so we're going to do the vodka again this week. The freeze. I had it in the freezer for a little bit. You gotta freeze the freeze, right? And this week I'm gonna do something a little bit different. I'm gonna make a screwdriver, some orange juice. Alright? So the freeze, if you don't remember, I got from the local ABC store. After taxes, it was about $8 and some change. Excuse me. So it's not top shelf. It's not bad. The bottle's pretty. It tastes alright. It's kind of strong. And it's cheap. It's not the cheapest you could buy, but it's not the most expensive either. So people like me who are on a budget can afford it. So we're going to pour in some orange juice. There we go. That should be enough, right? Pour a little bit more in there. Shit. Let's do the whole thing. Alright. That's a lot more than a shot. Well, it's good. That goes really good together. I like that. I like that a lot. So this week, I want to talk about something that's been bothering me. Now, I won't say where I work. I won't tell the name of the company. But we recently had a company meeting. They had everybody at the plants 1, 2, and 3, assembly, production, and all that stuff. They had us all come into a meeting, gave us some Chick-fil-A and all that stuff to tell us that they're giving people even more raises. But here's the thing that really bothers me. The only ones that were getting raises, again, were those that are in production. The molders that mold things with the foam. And then the assembly people, the people that put the pieces together that the molders make. And the cutting crew, make sure everything fits right, sews it all together and all that stuff. I'm not going to say what we make, that's irrelevant. So only they were getting the raises. So the past almost 2 years I've worked there, they've gotten 7 or 8 raises. Yeah, that many. So they are now up to, have the potential to make up to $24 an hour. $24 an hour. Alright? I'm about to get where it really upset me. One of the other workers, I had got to hand it to him. It took a lot of balls for him to do it. And he said, "What about the rest of us? What about shipping and receiving?" The manager said, "That's indirect labor." The guy responded, "But we are an integral part of this organization. We're an integral part of this company." And we are. And he said again, "But you're still indirect labor. And we can talk about y'all another time." They've been saying that for over a year now. They've been promising to give everybody a raise. They'll say everybody. And then when they actually give the raise, it's not everybody. It's only those who are directly responsible with the product. Now this is the part that really pisses me off. Okay? Everything in that company starts in the grinder room. So let me break it down to you like this. I won't say what we make. But what we do make is made from foam. It is a foam product. Okay? You see this everywhere you go. You see our product. Don't even know it. But anyway. It starts in the grinder room, where the grinder operator 10 years ago used to only be responsible for just taking chunks of foam, throwing it in the grinder, it goes into the bin. That's it. That's all I had to do every day, keep it clean. Alright. Now it's different. Back when they had this business 10 years ago, before they added all the new equipment and all this stuff and all the new responsibility, that was all he had. To start him at $10 an hour. Okay, it's cool. He's just throwing foam in the grinder. Alright. They've added a lot more responsibilities since then. But the starting pay rate is still the same. $10 an hour. So now, he is responsible for using a forklift to take the giant bales of foam off the trucks. Each bale weighs about a ton, half ton, a ton, 2 tons. It depends on what brand foam we get. Okay? He then has to stack them neatly and in order. He has to mark each piece, which the brand, and the date he got it. Alright? Then, he has to sweep off the truck. Okay? That makes sense. No problem with that. That's all cool. He also has to make sure the fiber machine, it's a machine called a fiber machine, you put chopped up fiber into it. It goes in to add weight and consistency to the batch. And I'll get into that later. Anyway, you have to make sure that that stays full, never goes empty. You have to make sure you keep adding foam to the hopper. That's this big machine. We drop the large chunks in. It grinds it up, spits it out onto a smaller belt, goes into another grinder, makes it even more fine. I think you can call it a granulator. Alright, cool. He also has to keep all of that clean. But he also, every single day, has to make sure that the special rolling bin, we just call it a green buggy. That is where the molders take the excess foam that they accidentally drop on the floor in the process of their molding. Throughout the whole day, they put it into this thing because it's wet. It's a long process, but anyway, we can't use that and mix it in with the dry stuff. We have to process it. Guess whose job it is? The grinder operator. Yeah. So he has to take this whole big thing, it's about the size of a car, small car, not a big one. So roll it into the back. But before he can do anything with it, there's a giant dryer. He has to make sure the stuff in it from the previous night is dry. If not, guess what? Can't do anything with that green buggy. But you get molders keep coming back there complaining, where's the green buggy? Is it done yet? Where's the green buggy? Is it done yet? Because they're not waiting until quitting time to clean up. They're cleaning every time it's a break time or a lunch time, or they just feel like they don't have nothing to do. But anyway, so we got to put up with that. Every day we tell them the same thing, they don't listen. Anyway, so get done with the dryer. Hopefully it's done. Have to take a little thing and put it up through there and make sure it's cleaned out all the way. We have to make sure it's dry. You can't run it wet. So we take that out. We dump that onto what we call it the line. It goes in through the smaller grinder. Empty the box out. Shove it back up under the dryer for the next shift. Cool. That's done. Then we have to switch all the chutes and the pipes so that they're going over to the dryer. Make sure it's not blowing anything out of it. Then we have to dig all the wet, congealed, bunched up pressed up foam, and it's a pain in the butt because it gets hard. It tries to turn into one giant solid piece. So imagine something the size of a roughly the size of a Mini Cooper. One of the little Mini Coopers. It's about that size. So imagine something like that. So a solid, wet, soaking wet, stinking foam. It stinks. I have to pull that apart. What are you doing, girl? Daisy's being crazy. I have to pull it apart, put it on the line, and break it apart and make sure the molders didn't put pieces of metal, pipes, tubing, soda bottles, trash, wood, nails, all that stuff. They throw all that stuff in there. They don't care about how hard they're making someone else's job. They're making $24 an hour. Why should they care, right? They make too much waste. We end up always needing to have 2 buggies. But the problem is, there's only one that can fit in the dryer, and we only have the one dryer. Anyway, so we have to deal with all of that. We're only starting at $10 an hour. But that's indirect labor. Now, I ask you, without me doing my job as a grinder, what are the molders going to mold? Air, but it's indirect labor, right? Said that foam, that dry foam, that is nice, fresh, dry foam, colorful, whatever, that is used by the batch maker. The current one we have, I can't stand his rear end. He gets on my nerves, but at the same time, he's got to deal with the molders and even more directly, but it's indirect labor, right? Their attitudes, they'll order a whole box, and then later they'll say they only want half after he's already mixed the batch. This is what he does. So he takes that foam, he puts it in this giant blender. He's got 2 of them, 1 and 2. Spins the stuff around. While it's spinning around, has to add a certain amount of weight of the foam. So this is ground up to about pieces about like that. Then he has to add a certain amount of glue. Goes by a weight, because the whole thing has to have a certain weight. And that's where he adds the fiber I was telling you about earlier. And it comes out with specific consistency needed to mold our foam-based products. Alright, so then once it's done that, he has to put these wooden boxes underneath the blenders. Half of these things don't roll. Why? Why is it, Daisy? Half of them don't roll right, and they're a pain in the neck. He has to put about 100 pounds in each one. That's a whole box, right? Now, molders have to tell him how much they want ahead of time before he makes the batch. So they'll each tell him how much they want, and he'll make the batch accordingly, because he has to do a certain weight. He has to have a specific amount of molders wanting a specific amount of weight for him to make each specific batch. Anyway, so he gets them. They'll ask for a whole box. I want a whole box. I want a whole box. And when they come back there to get the whole box, he's already made it. And once the glue's in there, you can't let it sit there because it'll harden up. We call it set up, and you can't get it out the blender. What are you doing? Crazy, excuse me, crazy today. But you won't be able to get it out the blender. It's a pain in the neck. But they'll come back, oh, they want a half box after they order the whole box. So he has to tell them, oh, I'm sorry, it sucks for you, but I got to give you the whole box. That's what you ordered. And you give them the whole box. Then they want to pout and moan and piss and complain. And they go and tell. They want to go and stitch on somebody about it. And that's been part of the problem. Molders get to snitch or whine and complain and piss and moan. That's how they got all the raises. And a couple in particular, they'll walk out and quit real quick in a hurry. But because they make really good numbers, management does everything they can to keep them. So management has been bending over backwards. Molding is hard work, and I'm going to get into that in a second. But anyway, the batch making is sort of a complicated process. You have to weigh everything, write everything down, keep track of it. Daisy playing with her squeaky. Anyway, so then from there it goes to the molders. Okay, this is their job. They scoop the foam into a bucket, put the buck on a scale. They weigh it out. It has each piece they make has to be a specific piece or weight. Put it into the mold. Drop. Then use our hands, smack it around until it's in the right shape. Goodness, girl! Why you want? Hey! Don't do that to my blanket. Don't do that to my blanket. Don't do that to my blanket. There you go. Good girl. Good girl. Say hi, Daisy. I love you too. Alright. So, they have to smack it around and get it to the right form. Then they drop a lid down. Everything's powered by air, so it's all pneumatic. So it's a pneumatic piston, drops the lid down. They go into the next mold. There's 4 molds on one carousel. That's what they call it. Anyway. Then pop one in. Pop the next one out. Pop one in. Pop the next one out. Pop one in. That's basically it all day. It's hot because you're using steam. Excuse me. And I molded for about 6 months. It's hard, it's grueling, it's repetitive. I can understand wanting to pay them that much. That's not my issue. Okay? You'll see where I'm going with this in a little bit, I promise. Just hang in there with me, please. So the molders to the inspectors have to inspect the parts to make sure the parts are good, they meet the standards. They have to send the reject back, and they have to deal with molders complaining that they're sending rejects. Man, there's nothing wrong with part, blah, blah, blah. The inspectors are doing their job. They're not trying to be pissy at anybody or make anybody's day more hard than what it needs to be. They want to get a paycheck too, just like everybody else is there. What are you doing? What are you doing? She's being silly. Alright, so they got to deal with that. And then from the inspectors, they... What? Not only do they have to keep the rejects out, they have to keep track how many parts each person makes. They have to keep track of how many of each thing, because there's lots of different kinds of parts. They have to keep track of all that. Write it all down so the management knows what to put in the computer. Hey! She shot my mic on the floor. Anyway. So from there, it's the material handlers. Material handlers, the ones that go back and get the pallets or the racks, stack the good parts onto so they can load it onto the truck. Hey! Come here! Come here! Come here! Good girl. Stop all that. Daddy's making a video. You just wants attention. But, material handlers unload the trucks in the front, like parts that need to be unloaded, or they have to load all the good parts. They have to stack them by hand on the truck. They have to take them off the pallet, stack them on hand from the floor all the way to the ceiling, to be taken all the way up the hill to the other plant. Anyway, they got to make sure their count is right. They got to make sure they grab the right pallets that are marked and all that stuff. And they got to make sure the inspectors, molders all have empty pallets for the rejects and for the good parts and all this. There's a lot of moving around using hand trucks. They also have to use a forklift, so you have to be certified for that. But from what I'm understanding, they only start that job and the inspector job both at $9 an hour. And I think, but I'm not sure, the batchmaker job starts at also $9 an hour. Anyway, that's just there. And then everything moves to assembly. So you got those, the material handlers up in assembly, taking the parts off the trucks, taking them to the assembly to be put together, glued, and all that stuff. I never actually sat and watched what assembly does because I'm mostly stuck in the back of the grinder. But anybody who's watching this who's done assembly work can probably already guess what they're doing. So from there it goes to cutting, I think, and then shipping and receiving to the customer. I'm assuming shipping and receiving is loading all the parts on the correct trucks, scanning everything in, making sure the merchandise and the checklist is all done, and manifest is done right, and all that stuff. Alright. I've done a little bit of that before. It's not as easy as some people think it is, because there's mistakes that can be made. be made. Anyway, this is what I take issue with. What? It's not the fact that the molders and production are getting all the raises. What? You silly girl. I take issue with everyone else being considered indirect labor and treated like they're not having anything to contribute. Now I ask you these questions, okay? This is for all you management, all you corporate people out there that have a labor force. Please listen to this and take it into consideration. Without the grinder, there's no foam. Without the foam, batch makers got nothing to mix but air and glue and fiber. Yeah, I know. Leave that alone. Why? Come here, girl. Come here. Stop all that. Stop all that. Anyway, so without the batch maker, the molder's got nothing to mold. What are they gonna mold? Air? Without the inspectors, the molders would send all their bad parts. Come here. The molders would send all their bad parts up there, right? And we'd be sending customers bad parts, right? And nobody would have a true count. Molders have been caught trying to say they made more parts than what they actually made. Yeah? Don't you dare. Yeah, I see you. Don't chew up my stuff. Hey, don't you dare. They've been caught doing it. Don't you dare. There you go. Okay, without the material handlers, how's assembly going to get the finished parts so that it can put together? Now shipping and handling. Hey! And how shipping and handling will load anything on the truck? They don't have nothing to load. Now without shipping and handling, how are your customers going to get your parts? Indirect labor, my eyeball. Without what we do, us indirect laborers, without what we do, you have no operation. You understand? It's all one organism, and it starts at the grinding room. Give us the same respect. We want the same recognition as everyone else is getting. Our jobs might be as hard, or might be a different kind of hard. Do you ever consider that? Without us, you have no operation. All we want is the same consideration you're giving to the molders and people in assembly. Yeah? You don't necessarily have to give us as big a raise. I'm not expecting $24 an hour for my job. I'm not. But give us something. Instead of a year and a half of promises to give us a raise and then nothing. That's what I don't like. And when people ask, well, what about us? Well, you're just ignorant. That's diminishing our worth. That's telling us you don't really see us as really worth that much. That's not right. You really got to take the time to decide how important your workers are to you. All of them. Not just the ones that make the parts. Because there's a lot of other stuff that goes into how those parts are able to be made in the first place. No grinder, no foam. No foam, no batch maker. No batch maker, your molders aren't molding anything. Your molders aren't molding anything, inspectors have nothing to inspect. Without inspectors, your molders are sending bad parts. And they're giving false numbers, increasing their count higher than what they actually made. Without the material handlers, you have no one moving the stuff to and from to where it needs to be. Without shipping and receiving, your customers aren't getting their parts. Alright everybody, this has been another Drunken Hubby video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you next week. Leave some comments below. Tell me what you want to see, what you want to hear. Let me know. Bye!